You are tuned in and listening to the Mrshowtym showcast. Now, boy oh boy, Sneako needs to take more trips to foreign countries outside of the US more often, because he came back with immense amount of wisdom. I've never heard Sneako be so on point and with such wise talking points. This is coming from a person who has called Sneako childish because of his antics and his behaviors and the way he conducts himself previously. But ever since Sneako came back from Dubai, Japan, wherever it is that he was visiting, right? He's been taking some wise pills. Some real red pills. So Sneako was a special guest over at FreshAndFit, and the main topic of discussion was, ladies, at what point are you looking to have children, right? That was like basically the gist of the topic. I'll link to the show in the description or on the first comment pinned to the top, right? Now Sneako did something that I least expected him to do. He actually pushed back against Myron Gaines and Walter Weeks or Fresh Prince CEO. Because usually those guys are just an echo chamber of each other, of one another. But in this scenario, Sneako was the wisest man on the panel, the smartest man on the panel. About, let's say, like a day ago, one of our original founders of the space, Rollo Tomassi, put out a tweet saying that the quickest way, he gave like steps, the quickest way to becoming a high value man is 1, to avoid having, not get married, avoid family creation, and to get a vasectomy in your 20s. So a high value man avoids marriage, avoids creating a family, and gets, neuters himself, basically transing himself in his early 20s. How on earth does that make sense? You see, what I've noticed about Rollo Tomassi in particular, he sort of like does these reviews on Dr. Jordan B. Peterson and Matt Walsh when it comes to today's state of marriage and relationships with regards to the divorce laws, the child support system laws, whatever. I perfectly understand. It is a risk for men to get married because men hardly get anything out of it. The biggest beneficiaries are women because they get to walk out with half of the man's resources. Recently, we have this soccer player, I forgot his name, Ibrahim something, the guy from Morocco. His wife tried to, pull the old switcheroo on him. Lucky for him, his assets were under his mother's name, or at least 80% of his assets. Smart move. Very smart. And I think going forward, more men will be inspired to do just that. The only problem is, I don't think it will work out for every single man because, trust issues is a factor. Then what you going to do? Can't always trust family members. Just because someone is your family doesn't mean that you can put your whole entire life in their hands. I mean, whenever someone reaches levels of success, usually the first person to, backstab them or do them wrong or throw them under the bus is people that are very close to them. So with me, I'm like, I don't know. But I perfectly understand. It worked out for him. I just don't think it will work out for every single man on the planet. But moving on. let's come back to Sensei Rollo Tomassi, one of our original founders of the space, this beloved Red Pill Manosphere space. I seriously, unequivocally, absolutely disagree with those first 3 points he made. The quickest man to become the quickest way to becoming a high value man is new to yourself. Basically turn yourself into a trance, if you know what I mean. Basically turn yourself into a skittle. Become part of the alphabet community. Avoid having families. Creating families. Avoid getting married. I absolutely disagree. Because, listen, I find it absolutely funny how Rollo Tomassi himself can put out such advice when he himself is married. He is busy telling younger men not to get married, but he himself is a married man. Now, hold on. I've done my thorough research on some of the content creators of the space. I'm not just talking out of my neck. Rollo Tomassi tried to justify his claims by saying that, he got married back in the day when marriage isn't what the bear trap that it is today. Okay, Sensei Tomassi, okay, but that doesn't make you immune to getting divorced. Your wife, God forbid, can divorce you tomorrow for whatever reason. God forbid. You would get dragged through the gulag all the same as Steven Crowder, the same as all other men who've been, lost pretty much half their livelihoods due to, the corrupt divorce system. You yourself, Sensei Tomassi, you're not immune to yourself. Sorry, you're not immune to it yourself. So you're basically also in the same boat as the next 20-year-old guy who gets married tomorrow. It can happen to you. Now, I would say that the likelihood of your wife doing it is very low because your wife in your generation, you come from a previous generation. Unlike today where it's getting worse, I get it, but if your wife were to decide to divorce you tomorrow, you get dragged through the family court system, being divorce graped all the same. And another thing, we already have problems in this society of people being raised in single-parent homes, broken homes. People whose parents are not married. That breeds further dysfunction down the line. So we cannot help conduct the problem further by telling people not to get married. That would be creating further broken families on purpose. Again, I understand the marriage laws and the divorce system is what it is, but it's better for us to lean towards people getting married, people having families within wedlock, children growing up in a stable household like I did, versus saying, oh no, avoid all that. You're breeding an entire generation of people who are traumatized and come from broken backgrounds. And that I cannot co-sign. I would much rather say, hey, listen, get married, because it's not every single modern woman who's gonna pull the old switcheroo on a guy. The okie doke. It's not all women that are just gonna divorce you tomorrow as soon as they sign the marriage contract. It's not all women they're gonna do that. Yes, in this current time, in this day and age, we are in a catch-22 position We are between a rock and a hard place. But it's still safe to lean towards marriage. Because if we say, don't get married, avoid creating families, we are helping the Antichrist. We are helping the NWO. We are helping the Agent Smiths of this matrix. We are helping to perpetuate the problem. Much rather lean towards family creation. Let's choose to die on that hill. Because at the end of the day, most people, they do want a family. They do want to get married. Both men and women. And telling men to get vasectomies, that is just a fallacy. That's just the wrong thing to do. That's just that's just like so wrong on many levels. Now you talk about, oh, but when, you know, young men need to, sleep around in their early 20s and then only get married in like later in life, somewhere around, let's say in their 40s and their 50s, that's absolute garbage. Rollo Tomassi, do you hear me? I've given you props previously for taking down an Agent Smith, but here you lost the plot. You're absolutely wrong on this one. And Mrshowtym is calling you out. Absolutely wrong. Absolutely the wrong type of advice. This is no different than, we're trying to fight feminism. And now you're basically like being a male version of feminists. The two sides of the same coin, the opposite side of the coin of feminists. That's like saying, that's the equivalent of telling women to freeze their eggs. Oh, when they, later in life, when they're done with their careers, they can unfreeze their eggs, but guess what? It's not the same. By the time they unfreeze their eggs, their biology, their eggs are no longer the same. Same thing goes for men who get vasectomies. They say you can reverse the process, but it won't be the same. You will not be the same. Some men will not come back from having a vasectomy the same. They will have issues. Irreversible issues. Irreversible, we're talking about irreversible side effects. So no. Rollo Tomassi, no, 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 no! Absolutely wrong. This whole notion of men need to sleep around in their early 20s and then only settle down in their 50s is a fallacy. I puke at that notion. I spit upon it. Because when men, when men sleep around, guess what you're leaving behind? You're leaving a whole trail of women who are... When men sleep around in their early 20s, these are people's daughters you talk about. These men would be leaving behind a whole trail of alpha widowed women. Broken women, traumatized women, heartbroken women. What about them? So you're saying men should just use these innocent daughters for sex just so they can get par on game, and then only once they reach age 40 or 50 or 60, only then they'll be in tune with game and they'll be able to handle. Okay, let's say for example a guy has been doing that, and by the time they reach their 40s, 50s and 60s, only then he decides to settle down with, the unicorn, or, okay, fine, I know you're gonna think a woman. What if, upon him settling down with, finally settles down with the one woman, what if his relationship ends up falling off the rails regardless? What then? It's a lose-lose situation. So in his early 20s, he's been, sleeping around with girls, people's daughters, who want to get married, but you just telling these guys to just use these girls for sex, and then only up until he feels satisfied in his 60s, finally settling down at a late age with a woman that's, how old are we talking? Since men like to date younger women, let's say a woman who's in her early 20s. So you have a guy in his, let's say in his 40s, marrying a woman in her 20s. He won't last. Men tend to have a shorter lifespan compared to females. So by the time, like 10 years into their marriage, the guy kicks the bucket, and then he's left with a widow, basically. I mean, guys, listen, we have to be careful. We, the Red Pill Manosphere, we have to be careful with the type of information we put out there. I know some of us were trying to go overboard. We're trying to sound like Socrates. We're trying to go levels above Socrates. Cool, but we have to put each other in check. What Rollo Tomassi tweeted out, is absolute garbage. Absolute nonsense. Men should, you're trying to help men understand with female nature. It doesn't take you from your 20s all up to your 40s to understand how women work. And Sneako said it best. It doesn't take much for you to understand that a woman is a thotiana. You look at the type of photos she posts on Instagram, immediately right there, it lets you know that she's, for the streets. It doesn't take you sleeping with a whole, 10 years of sleeping with women to finally, have a light bulb go off in your head, oh, now I understand how women work. Now that I've spent the last 20 years or 30 years sleeping around, now I'm going to get married to my one woman. And then karma comes back and hits you in the face. She divorces you. Takes half your stuff. I mean, what was the point? What was the point? Men and women are better together than they are apart. Sensei Tomassi, are you listening to me? I hope you. I'm gonna tag you. I'm gonna tag your chat. I'm gonna tag you in this video, so I hope you see this. Men and women are better together than they are apart. It's counterproductive to tell people to avoid the problem by telling them to not get married, by telling them to avoid creating families. Absolutely not. I myself would like to create a family myself. I have no desires of sleeping around, creating a whole generation of women who are alpha widowed by me, because I just wanted to get my nuts off as much as possible. I don't want to do that. I am not a terrible human being. And that's what you're telling these young men of today to do. To leave behind a whole plethora of broken women who are heartbroken by these alpha chads who've been sleeping around and been, just trying to learn some game. No. Mrshowtym, I renounce and or denounce your tweet. You got it wrong, Sensei. You got it wrong. You got it wrong. And of course, FreshAndFit, they're your buddies. You do collaborations with her. Obviously, they tried defending it. And, at some point, Myron was mumbling and stumbling. Whoa. And then Sneako asked him, would you get a vasectomy? And then Myron said, no. Aha! Right there! Well, why not, Myron? Why not get a vasectomy? Why? You know why? Because it's a fallacy. It's a stupid thing to do. Neutering yourself. And Fresh, he by his own admission, I don't know whether it was trolling or not, he said he already done that. Gentlemen, we're humans. Okay? Some of us, you know, we try to go a little extra hard where we end up coloring outside the lines. And it is it's our responsibilities. Some of us, some of our own brethren, to, you know, guide each other back on track. It's okay. We make mistakes sometimes. But it's our responsibility to put each other in check. Because if the red pill becomes about, you know, spreading disgusting, destructive advice to, you know, young men, no, we can't do that. We absolutely cannot do that. We have to uphold and keep the red pill manosphere from drifting off the rails, from coloring outside the lines. No, we should, you know, chastise ourselves back on course. But anyway, I don't mean to make this video long. FreshAndFit, Myron Gaines, they know themselves. They would never do do vasectomies, get vasectomies. Myron himself said it. He's like, yeah, personally I wouldn't do it, but you know, you just have to look at the context. Myron, in the words of CGA, Myron Gaines was shuffling. Right? I wish I could play the soundtrack. I can do some shuffling too. Okay, CGA fans, you know what I'm talking about. Myron Gaines was all the way shuffling. Right? Shout out to CGA. I love some of the soundtracks he plays, especially the New World Order soundtrack. But yeah, I finally understand why Rollo Tomassi has this personal gripe against Matt Walsh and the TradCons. Yeah, and Myron Gaines was like, oh, look at you, now you took the TradCon pill. Listen, the TradCons, they're blue-pilled in some of the things, and I've put them in check. But when it comes to marriage, oh no, we are better off telling guys to get married anyway. Because not every single woman that's gonna play you and take off your stuff. So yeah, I had to disagree with Rollo Tomassi on this one heavily. Because this is a serious topic. Marriage it's no longer sacred as it used to be. But we have to save the institution of marriage. If we just throw it off outside the window, then this society is done. I perfectly understand what marriage is today with the marriage laws and the divorce laws, the child support. I perfectly understand. But Rollo Tomassi, you cannot